afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from eTurbo News in Honolulu. Today is January 11th and 12th for some of you, and we will start our breaking news show with Jens Threnhardt. He is the new CEO of the Barbados Tourism Board and will give us a taste of what it is to move from Bangkok to Barbados and run Barbados tourism in his newfound paradise. After this, we're going to talk to Dr. Peter Tarlow in College Station, Texas, about the current state of travel and tourism, COVID, and much more. Stay tuned and enjoy our broadcast. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jens Threnhardt, and I'm the new Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., the official tourism board of the Republic of Barbados in the Caribbean. I've been in this job now since November 1st, 2021, after finishing almost 8 years as the Executive Director and CEO of the Mekong Tourism Coordinating Office, which is the regional tourism cooperation of the governments of Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and China. So I've moved here now from Bangkok, Thailand, and settled here, living right at the beach out at the south coast, and I'm on my way now walking to Oyston's fish market. It's just stunning and an incredible destination. And while many people only talk about the beautiful beaches, which are truly beautiful, there's so much more to experience in Barbados. I've experienced incredible farm-to-table restaurants. I've been in ecotourism sites, and I've just seen some amazing innovation happening here when it comes to responsible, sustainable, and regenerative tourism. And I would like to invite you on my journey as I'm looking to explore this country, and together we can show the world how tourism can be a force for good. So in the comments below, please give me your ideas and your thoughts. Good morning, and become part of my journey. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and every weekend I'm looking to do another video post just to update you on my progress and my experiences. Thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe, and talk to you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon and aloha, as I usually say. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz from eTurbo News, and we're joining you today from Athens, Greece. With me is Dr. Peter Tarlow in College Station, Texas. And we're talking about the world of travel and tourism, the world of Corona, and the world altogether. I'm currently still, as I said, in Athens, Greece, enjoying beautiful Athens. I had a tour of the Acropolis today, what was amazing. However, it's freezing cold here and it's raining. So it's probably not the best day for sightseeing. But if you look at thousands of years of history, I guess you can probably overlook the weather if you stay warm. How's everything in College Station, Texas, Peter?
Well, Texas is doing fine. The weather today is coolish, but not freezing. It's probably in Celsius about 16, 17 degrees, about 65 degrees in Fahrenheit. And we have blue skies, a little bit windy, but you know, that's okay. That's not the end of the world. We certainly don't have any rain, and it's certainly not bitter cold. So I know you had the advantage of getting a post-Christmas sale and getting a brand new coat, you told me. And so you now have a winter coat for Hawaii, which will be very useful on the Hawaiian Islands, but maybe some other place it'll go. Well, I have a coat that was given to me in my training of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police by the Mounties when I was in the Yukon in northern Canada. and that coat is good for 40 below zero. And interestingly enough, 40 below zero is the same in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. It's where they cross. So if it's 40 degrees below zero, it doesn't matter if it's Celsius or Fahrenheit, you're very cold. But it was sunny that day in the Yukon, so that was the good part. And I do have the coat, and everybody laughs at me in Texas for having a coat that can go to 40 degrees below zero.
Well, it's definitely not 40 degrees below zero. It's about 4 degrees above zero, but it feels it's quite cold because it's a strong wind, cold wind. And when you live in Hawaii, like I do, you're not used to this cold weather anymore. And certainly my coat probably wouldn't hold 40 degrees below either. But it was
40 degrees below zero. You don't even need a bridge. You can take a truck across a river just on the ice, and a plane can land on a river as if it were a landing strip. So that's very cold when you go to the Yukon. By the way, this has been a very cold winter across much of the Europe. The northeastern part of the United States is having a really cold period right now. I spoke with family members, and they told me that in the Washington, D.C. area, it was about 16 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about -7 degrees in the Celsius scale. So that's pretty cold, to say the least. And that leads to a whole nother issue, which is with the weather getting in the winter, we're seeing a real rapid rate of COVID, especially the Omicron, which is sort of related to a cold and to the flu. But this is the time of the year that if you haven't had your flu shot, please get it, because people are traveling, people are on trains, buses, and this should be a real reminder that we need to be looking at the total issue of health and not just one part of the health equation, because the winter is a time when flus develop, people are inside, and these are a whole series of problems. There's all sorts of comorbidities which are being confused with in mix with COVID. And the best way to really protect yourself against COVID, besides getting vaccinated, which I strongly recommend, is have the least number of comorbidities in your life. And that means try to keep your weight in check, exercise, get sunshine. And I think the whole issue of health and tourism from this experience is going to be a really important one that we're going to have to think through on much greater details than we've ever thought through before. There was a major bedbug invasion in lots of upper class hotels across the United States. And that's also a health issue.
Yeah, and we actually reported about it yesterday. Chicago was the top of all cities in the United States with bedbugs. And we actually issued the 50 worst cities in the US. So it's a fun article. Go back a few articles down and you find it on eTurbo News. And yes, besides COVID, there are many other issues that can lead into COVID and people may not be aware of, but health tourism has always been important. We always think about tourism, about spas and fitness. Many people do either think about drinking alcohol and eating food. So it depends what side of the tourism enjoyment you want it to be.
But it's part of the problem is it's very difficult to go into a restaurant and not have a lot of salt added to the food. Portions are not thought through carefully. Many restaurants really push, as do airlines, foods that are high in carbs and high in fats. Now, part of the reason they do that is because they're not terribly expensive and because of the fact that it'll fill you up. So they don't want people to be hungry. But on the other hand, having a high carb, high fat diet leads to comorbidities. It leads to diabetes, leads to obesity. I'm going to be traveling to Mexico at the end of this month. And Mexico has the highest obesity rate in the world, followed by the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And part of the United States' obesity is, of course, we have many people who eat, including me, who like Tex-Mex or Mexican food here. It's really not Mexican food, it's Tex-Mex food, which has high fat content. It's delicious, but it's not very nutritious. And and that's part of the problem is that how many of us are eating out? How many people go through a drive-through and get a hamburger and French fries, but you rarely get a salad? And so fast food is on every street corner, probably also in Europe, but certainly in the United States and in much of the world.
Yeah, and talking about Europe and food, interesting development in Europe, in many EU countries, is now in Germany, they call it 2G and plus. What it means, in order to visit a restaurant during these COVID times, you have to be vaccinated and you have to provide a test. So you need both. So being vaccinated even 3 times no longer is good enough. Another rule on top of the already restricted rules is now you have to show your vaccination papers. Here in Greece, you can enter a restaurant still if you are vaccinated, but if you wanted to sit inside, I guess you also need the test. So rules are getting stricter and stricter and stricter. Do you think this is the right way forward? Does it really make a big difference, Peter?
It doesn't. And I think it's probably moving us closer to fascism all the time. I certainly think we don't want to be in the situation that Australia's in. Huge fight, as you know, because of the Australian Tennis Open, and they wouldn't let some of the stars come in. They denied visas and a whole series of other, crises. I think on some level, we're going to have to accept personal responsibility. The other thing is, if we're demanding both tests and vaccination cards, then people are starting to question why get vaccinated. I think we're feeding into the people who are anti-vaccine, because they're saying clearly, if the vaccination doesn't protect me and I can still be a spreader, then what good is the vaccination? Now, the argument against that, the counter argument is that the vaccine, should you get COVID, will lower the risk of hospitalization and lower the risk of severity of this. But I think we have to somehow balance freedom, especially in the Western nations that pride themselves on freedom, with personal responsibility. And if we have so many rules, then you know what? It's going to kill tourism. It's going to kill enjoyment. And eventually, what do we do when the government says, you have to show you've had a vaccine against a cold, or you have to show you've had, in other words, will COVID become the wedge that allows fascism to take over? And I don't think that's good. I think we need to allow people to make certain personal decisions. And the nanny state has never been successful any place in the world. And that's on some level what we're doing. It's creating all sorts of problems. People in New York requires that you have a vaccine card to enter a restaurant. And now people with young children their children can't get vaccinated because they're 3 years old or 4 years old, can't go with their parents into a restaurant. And so people are walking away. And I think it will be, in the long term, it will have a very long-term negative effect.
Yeah, I mean, the effect on the mental health is already quite severe. And I think we all have to balance this, because on the other hand, Peter, if you look at the current situation, we have record COVID number, we have horrible COVID numbers. But in all essence, it's not worse than it was a year ago. It's probably less, even with the higher numbers when it comes to hospitalization and death. So we just have to learn how to balance all of this, I think.
And part of these numbers are from the Omicron, which is, for many people, especially if you've been vaccinated, a bad cold. And by the way, more and more testing is showing that if you've had the Omicron variant, it does provide you with antibodies. And therefore, I'm almost wondering on some level if we shouldn't be doing what, I don't know in Europe, but in the United States, when I was a little boy and somebody had mumps or somebody had measles, all the parents brought their children to get infected. There was no vaccine against mumps when I was a child. And so, but if you had the mumps, then you could never get them as an adult. And that was very important, because mumps in an adult male is very serious. And a child, it's not much of a deal to do. So they had mumps parties. Literally,
right.
The goal was to get people sick so that they would have the antibodies in for life, and then that was it. You were done. So I had, when I was 5 years old, I had the mumps, and then nobody worried about it. The antibodies were in for me for life. I wonder if at some level, the fear that we're doing now with the Omicron, if we wouldn't be better, and a lot of medical professionals are saying that it's going towards herd immunity. And if we all just got Omicron, you know what? The virus, it might be a way of handling it. It just would not be a threat anymore, because we'd all have had it once, we're done, and it's over. And we do know that natural immunity is better than vaccines. Vaccines are good, and I push them. But there's nothing better than natural immunity, having it your own body producing those antibodies.
Yeah, and this makes a lot of sense. And of course, we're not medical experts, so we don't know how this would play with COVID. It's a whole different animal, many people say, but there is a lot of confusion. There's really not one side.
We should encourage everyone, before you make a decision, speak with your own doctor, because nobody knows your body as well as you in your own personal physician. So yes, we're not giving medical advice. We're giving tourism commentary with the hope that that will inspire you to speak to your personal health professional.
But besides all, travel hopefully is here to stay. I enjoyed my little trip, even in the freezing cold weather, to Athens and Greece today. And there are people out at the Acropolis. I met a lot of Americans, I met Russians, I met Germans. So people do travel, maybe in smaller numbers, but travel is there to stay. And it's, after all, it's a business. I kind of feel sorry for the guy who's selling postcards in front of the Acropolis and no one is buying them. You almost feel like obligated to buy a postcard, because you see this poor guy not making a dime for hours, And so the industry.
But at least they can buy postcards there. In much of the world now, it's very hard to find postcards. There's a big postcard shortage.
Really?
And part of that because of email and because of Zoom. In other words, rather than it used to be you buy postcards to send them home. Now you take a picture and you send the picture home on Zoom. So people aren't spending money on postcards. And if you want to buy a postcard, sometimes you literally have to spend a day seeking out a postcard. College Station is kind of a big place where people visit all the time. And my grandchildren wanted me to send them postcards when they were in summer camp. It took me all day to find postcards. He said, no, take a picture and send it to them on Zoom, on their website.
So in Greece, there doesn't seem to be a problem, because I saw hundreds of souvenir stores and they're desperate to sell postcards. So send them over here. And I think there's plenty of postcards.
Maybe what you should do is buy a whole large number of postcards and bring them back to Hawaii, and you can sell the postcards in Hawaii as if they were. And this is the famous Hawaiian Acropolis.
Wonderful.
There is a postcard shortage. On the other hand, the good news is that the cream cheese shortage seems to be going away, and that was a major crisis, but that seems to be solving. But there is a major problem in much of the world of supply chains and supply, and that's a real stores in many parts of the world have empty shelves. And no one's going to starve to death. I don't want to exaggerate, but what we are seeing is that it's hard to find this product or that product. Things are just beginning to be missing. And so the supply chain is part of globalization. Globalization deals with tourism. And if we cannot get products from around the world, that's going to hurt. Well, I think it will hurt tourism, but maybe on the other hand, it'll help tourism, because maybe so often now you go to the same place and you see the same products, all made in one place or all made in the other. And maybe if supply chains don't work as well, we're going to have to go back to thinking locally and producing local products that people will want to buy, because you can only get it in that locale. So maybe there's a good side and a bad side to that.
Well, I think one of the threats in the world, I'm not trying to speak out against Amazon, I'm using Amazon, but Amazon is a threat to the supply chain in a lot of ways. When you look at the small stores, especially the ma and pa stores, and here in Greece, you see thousands and thousands of them. It is just really, really tough, I think, to stay in business if you run a small business. And then you have Amazon selling the same product and you get it right to your doorstep. It's
Often for less.
and for less money sometimes, yes. Sorry.
That's also the problem of what we call in English, American English, the big box stores. In other words, during the height of COVID, we shut down all the small stores, but we allowed things like Walmart and Target and to stay open. And it never was clear to me why I was safe in Walmart, but I wasn't safe in a small store.
You probably would have been safer in the small store because
right.
there's not that many people. Yes.
So then you really wonder, what was the science behind this? Or was there any science? Or was there politics behind it? Because the big stores stayed open all through COVID, and the small stores were forced to shut. And those are the guys who could barely hang on, and many of them went out of business.
Yeah, and all these rules, of course, there is no streamline. And again, here from Greece today, at the Acropolis, it's mandatory to wear your face mask when you're outside. And there is a strong wind. There's nothing you can hide inside. It's just cold. You're outside in the open. So what would the mask do? Nothing.
Nothing. Zero. And actually, the mask, well, the only thing a mask might do is it'll keep your nose warm.
Yeah, but you have a hard time breathing.
But if you don't breathe that much, then I think it's very silly. I think here's a simple rule of masks. If you can go to a fish store and smell the fish, the mask is not working.
Yes.
And so much of this is the mask has become a religious symbol for many people. And it has nothing to do with science. Matter of fact, it seems science and COVID have almost departed one from the other. The whole idea of making children in schools wear masks has done more damage than both physical and psychological damage. And children need to see the mouth, need to see the whole face in order to be able to develop social interaction. And now you have 5-year-old children wearing masks all day long and really suffering. It's almost as if we made the weakest part of society suffer. We say, instead of the elderly taking care of the children, we're making the children take care of the elderly. And that seems to be something ethically and morally wrong.
Yeah, and sometimes it's funny that I tell you this little story. Last night, I called the front desk here at the hotel I'm staying in Greece. What's an international, I don't want to now name the hotel, but it's an international American hotel chain, and asked them how to adjust the temperature in the room because it was getting really cold and I couldn't figure out how to turn the heater on. And the guy comes up and looks at this thermostat and just pulls it out of the wall pretty much. He said he's a technician, and then he takes his mask off in my room and just blows in it, full blast, blows in it because it was dirty, and put it back on. So that it fixed the problem.
Well, think about how much dirt there is throughout that whole hotel room.
Yes.
For example, how often have those rugs, if they've been cleaned?
Yeah.
How often has the mattresses been changed? How many, so the whole issue that brings us back to where we started, the whole issue of health and tourism. If we use COVID only for COVID, I think we're missing the point. If we use COVID as a springboard to begin to understand that every part of the tourism industry needs to begin to think about health and how we take care of people, then the hospitality industry will not become the hospital industry. Ironically, they both come from the same Latin root, hospital and hospitality. Hopefully we stay on the hospitality side and not on the hospital side.
Definitely. Well, Peter, I hope the rest of the day
Thank you.
Going great. I'm getting ready for my long flight back on Thursday, all the way from Athens with 2 stops to Honolulu. And then I guess we're going to speak again when I'm really in the Aloha land.
Yes.
And see how the world looks at that time.
And it won't be quite so cold.
Probably not.
All right. Have a safe journey. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter. Good night. Bye-bye.